It's 1945, World War II has just ended, but the world is not at peace. The tension is palpable. The smoke has barely cleared from the battlefields, yet fresh lines are being drawn. Europe is split in two. The Western Bloc, under the influence of the United States, and the Eastern Bloc, under the control of the Soviet Union. A metaphorical Iron Curtain falls. It's not a boundary of land, but of ideology, a stark divide between democracy and communism. Differences deepen, and the distrust grows. The United States, standing strong on the principles of capitalism and liberal democracy, finds itself in opposition to the Soviet Union, with its commitment to communism and a state-controlled economy. They're two superpowers, two contrasting ways of life, two opposing visions for the future of the world. The pieces are moving on the global chessboard, the strategies are being plotted, the alliances are being formed. The stage is set, the players are ready, the Cold War has begun. As the 1950s dawn, the temperature drops. The Cold War is heating up. The globe becomes a chessboard with superpowers maneuvering their pieces. The Korean War erupts, a proxy battle between the East and the West. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, forms as a shield against Soviet aggression, prompting the USSR to counter with the Warsaw Pact. The heavens become a new frontier in this conflict. The space race blasts off, and the world watches as the stars become a battlefield of technology and ideology. The arms race escalates, with both superpowers stockpiling weapons of mass destruction. The tension reaches a fever pitch in the early 60s with the Cuban Missile Crisis. The world watches in horror as the US and USSR lock horns over nuclear weapons in Cuba. It's a standoff that brings humanity to the precipice of annihilation. The world holds its breath, teetering on the brink of nuclear disaster. The 1970s bring change. The ice begins to thaw. This is the era of détente, a French term meaning relaxation. It was a period of eased tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union, marked by significant diplomatic initiatives and a mutual desire to avoid nuclear conflict. Among the highlights of this era were the Strategic Arms Limitation talks, known as the SALT treaties. These negotiations between the two superpowers sought to curb the arms race, leading to two agreements that put a cap on the production of strategic nuclear weapons. In the mid-70s, the Helsinki Accords further solidified détente, with 35 nations, including the US and the USSR, agreeing to respect the sovereignty and borders of European states. Yet, even as the ice thawed, new conflicts emerged. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 threatened to undo the progress of détente, straining relations between the East and the West. But as the 1980s approach, the Cold War takes a turn. The 1980s, the final act of the Cold War is about to unfold. The decade is marked by the Reagan era, a time of confrontational rhetoric and a massive arms buildup, a strategy designed to intimidate the Soviet Union. The Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars as it was popularly known, was a cornerstone of this approach, a proposed missile defense system intended to make nuclear weapons obsolete. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union saw the rise of Mikhail Gorbachev, a leader who recognized the need for change. He introduced policies of glasnost, or openness, and perestroika, restructuring, in a bid to modernize the Soviet Union and its economy. Then, in 1989, a symbol of division and ideological conflict fell, the Berlin Wall. This event signaled a significant shift. The Cold War was losing its icy grip. And then, in 1991, it is over. The Soviet Union collapses. The Cold War is over. In the aftermath of the Cold War, the world has changed. A chapter closed, and a new one began, marking the end of the bipolar world order that had held sway for nearly half a century. The Iron Curtain fell, symbolizing the end of an ideological battle between East and West. The United States emerged from the shadows of this conflict as the sole superpower. Its economic and military might were unparalleled, its cultural influence spread across the globe. But this new world order did not mean the end of conflict or power struggles. In fact, the Cold War's legacy continues to shape our world. It has influenced the rise and fall of nations, economic systems, and political ideologies. Our current geopolitical landscape is in many ways a reflection of this past conflict. The Cold War may be over, but its echoes still resonate today. Its impact is woven into the very fabric of our global community, a reminder of a time when the world was divided by a line drawn in the sand.